Resetting drop point! Brace yourself!
Hello everybody, I'm Peter from TSA and we're here to ask Steph all about his experience with the single player bits of Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. So, Tef, first things first, Kevin Spacey in all the trailers, what about him and the other actors in the game?
Yeah, I mean, that's like the first thing that everyone saw, really, wasn't it? Was Kevin Spacey. And
beautifully modelled.
Yes, that's the real thing that you're going to notice. It's really quite a big deal to have him in the game, and they've really gone out of their way to just go, you know what, here's his face. This is Kevin Spacey.
Look at Kevin Spacey.
Yeah.
Look at him.
But it's also quite funny that all of the other actors in the game are then done with the same like face tech. So it was quite amusing for me to get halfway through the game and then just go, hold on a second, that's just Troy Baker's face. which was quite amusing. But Troy Baker is actually he is playing Mitchell, who is the protagonist. He's your character in the game, and so it's quite interesting that for the first time, the protagonist in a Call of Duty game has got a voice. What they've done is that you only hear his voice during cutscenes, and this is like the intermission cutscenes. And so then when you're actually playing, then it's not, you don't have a voice, and so you do still occasionally get that bit where someone's talking to you and it's just like, say something back.
Yeah, it's a bit rude.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, Kevin Spacey, he plays like this Machiavellian character called Jonathan Irons, who owns Atlas, which is this big PMC, and he's basically like a standout actor in the cast, I think. And
that's it seems like a perfect role for him as well, to be fair, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean that's basically his shtick now. If you think of House of Cards, is basically he can do a good kind of crazy power mad guy, can't he?
Yeah.
But I mean the performance capture here, that's definitely the big talking point. Is come on leaps and bounds since.
And they have actually like done proper performance capture on all the faces and stuff as well.
Yes, it really is full performance capture, and you can really tell like they've gone in and they've like got proper big story cutscenes, and it's very well produced.
That is kind of something that stood out from the trailer, was just how good it looks, and I just wonder, that leads us on nicely to the next question, which I was going to ask about sort of how it looks and the graphics and stuff. But is it, Call of Duty games have always looked kind of good, but I feel like the last few have suffered a bit with the engine. Is this clearly designed for like next gen with the way it looks?
Yes, I'd say it is. I think Call of Duty Ghosts, it was very much beholden to PS3 and 360, but here I think it's more clear that Sledgehammer have been able to go at the two new consoles and just go, this is what we want to do. And
yeah,
let other people worry about what the older consoles are going to be able to manage.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels like we've got to that point where now they can say, no, we are going to focus on this being the showstopper.
Yeah,
and then we would do with the legacy versions as well, but it's all about the sort of the next gen stuff and making it look as good as it can.
Yeah, pretty much. And I mean, there is with the cutscenes, these are pre-rendered. They are done to a ludicrously high quality. And they do look incredible, but I think there is a bit of a step down when you actually get to the main game itself. I'm not saying it doesn't look bad; it still looks really good. But the in-game cutscenes, they can't quite match up to the intermission cutscenes. Although they do still like really show off the lighting, the facial animation, like overall there is a lot more nuance to the graphics when you're playing the game as well. So there's like when you see other characters do the exo double jump, they give off like this heat shimmer and distortion. That's a really nice effect. And when you do it as well, when you do an exo boost dash, these names are so crazy. When you do an exo boost dash, like the lights in the game will blur, and that's a really nice effect. And explosions.
So you get like
great.
Little trails on the lights.
Yeah, it's not like trails. It's sort of like you know when in Star Trek when you go into warp speed and all of the starlights get stretched out a little bit. Yeah. You have that for like half a second, and it's like not to the extent of going to warp, but it's because that would be a bit crazy. But it's sort of like everything gets like just like pulled out a little bit, and it's a really nice and really quite subtle effect. But I mean, there are still You've got the nice effects on top, but then there are points where it's sort of like some environments look a bit drab. There's stuff where like the NPCs, when you're outside of a cutscene moment, their mouths just flap and they've just got quite expressionless faces. And so I think that's a bit of a shame. But overall,
it feels like that's kind of an area where a lot of even the next gen stuff, even the stuff that is specifically made for these more powerful consoles, are tending to suffer a little bit in the sort of facial animations and the lip syncing outside of those CGI cutscenes.
Yeah, I think it's just
seems like a common thing with games over the past year or so.
I think it's just the amount of resources that the development team can throw at something. Like you don't want to have the actors in the crazy lycra suits with balls draped like all over them, acting out every single point of dialogue and scene and everything. Like you don't necessarily want to have that, and obviously then it's a lot more resources on the console itself to actually pull it off.
So you were saying about the exoskeleton. It's interesting how that is going to affect gameplay, and how does that translate into the way you play the game? What does it let you do?
Well, so you've got there's so many crazy abilities and gadgets which you have. So the most obvious one is and the one that was talked about most often is like the double jump. But it's quite odd that in the single player you don't have the double jump for long stretches of the game. It's there a lot of the time, but it depends on the exosuit which you've been equipped for that mission. Right. What you can do. So before a mission starts, there's a nice little introduction scene which says, "This is your suit. You've got like a grappling hook, you've got a riot shield, and you've got double jump," or something along those lines. I've just picked 3 things out of thin air, and so you don't always have the double jump, and it was quite weird to not be able to do that. And then it was only much later into the game, where a character turns and tells the whole squad, and Mitchell as well, to turn off the double jump so you don't brain yourself from the ceiling. I was just like, couldn't you have said that like 5 hours ago? Because that was the first thing I tried to do in the game. I was like, I'm just going to double jump around the world, everywhere, do everything.
And do you take health damage if you're inside and you bang your head on the ceiling?
Well, no, because you can't, because it takes the double jump away from you.
So that's a sort of it does that automatically.
Yeah, I think they should have left it in there.
Yeah,
and then it's like an insta kill. But if you double jump and you smack your head against the ceiling,
it is quite interesting that it's sort of treated as part of your loadout.
Yes, it definitely is in the single player. We'll talk about multiplayer in a different video, but you do then have like tons of different gadgets, and it's all combined together, and you can go invisible in some missions. You've got a grappling hook, like I mentioned. You've got different types of grenades, which can like mark enemies or like do an EMP, and you can sort of like, these are multifunction grenades, so you can pick the function that you want from your pool and throw them, and that's very cool. But also between missions you can actually upgrade your suit, which is an interesting thing. So you want to get kills, you want to get headshots. I think it's grenade kills as a third one, and also hunt down intel. And hitting milestones with these, you get points to spend, and you can like increase your health by like 10%, or get an extra grenade in one of the 2 grenade slots, or like if you're finding that you're taking damage and this is throwing your aim off, you can lessen that effect as well. So it's
like very light RPG stuff.
Yeah, it is very, very light. It's not really going to affect the game too much, but it can make a little bit of a difference, especially if you're playing on a harder difficulty.
So you were saying about the grenades being selectable. That all sounds quite cool, but there's a lot of other gadgets as well that you mentioned. Did they get a bit maybe campy, a bit sort of like James Bond?
Yeah, that was something I was a bit worried about from like preview events, because like obviously I'd see just like one stretch of the mission, I see it get used once, and I'd be like, oh okay, I hope that comes back. But the game is quite good at reusing these things. So like there's a mute bomb, which you set it off, and then you can basically do whatever you want within, let's call it a 15-meter radius. You can shoot your gun, and nobody outside of that bubble is going to be able to hear it. You've got that. You've got like the grappling hook. You have the exoskeleton's gloves have got like magnetic grippers, but you can basically climb up a wall like Spider-Man.
But they are all the gadgets are like useful tools rather than just like there for the sake of being a gadget.
That's it. It sort of feels. It doesn't feel too hackneyed, and it doesn't do the James Bond thing of like you've got a laser in your watch and you have to use it to cut through this bit of glass this one time. It doesn't fall into that trap, which I think.
Well, another thing that Call of Duty does quite often is like the big set pieces. So it would be very easy for them to say, "Well, here's a set piece, and luckily you have the exact thing that you need at this moment in time."
Yeah, exactly. It would be quite funny to have Gideon or some other NPC just shout out, "By the way, use the..." I don't know, I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Use your magnets now.
Yeah, use the magnets now to pull his glasses off.
So, did you see any of that? Was there any of that sort of set piece stuff as you were playing? Because the story, most people play Call of Duty for the multiplayer, and we will get to that in a different video, but I only ever play the single player. I love the campaign of Call of Duty games, and that's the only bit I ever play. So I'm sort of interested to know if they're still doing the sort of big set pieces that they build to, and how the pacing of the game works.
Well, I mean, it's still a linear, very linear story. Like there's only a couple of moments where it sort of gives you like a kind of sandbox area, and you can take different routes through a battle, or a stealthy section. But by and large, it's follow the corridor.
That's fine.
Kind of thing. And so you do have these big set pieces. You've got big explosions and stuff like that. But it's not too heavily reliant on like QTEs or anything, if that's the kind of thing that you meant. Talking about the story as a whole, it's sort of like set half a century into the future, which explains all of the exosuits and gadgets and stuff. And you kind of start off in Mitchell's first mission in the US military, going to do... I'm not entirely sure what he's doing in South Korea, but he's in South Korea, and there's lots of fighting to be done. So... that's good, I guess. Okay. And this is the bit that we saw at E3. That was also when it was revealed that Mitchell loses his arm and his best friend in like his first mission. So that didn't really go too well for him. But then he quickly ends up in Atlas, this PMC, and he's got loads of resources. So he gets a new arm, and from there you start doing missions, and it's all like you have this story to unravel. And there's obviously twists and turns and stuff like that, and I'm not going to spoil any of those. But
and presumably typical Call of Duty stuff, like you finish one mission and then you come back to a debrief where it tells you have to go somewhere else in the world. Yeah,
kind of. I mean, that's handled by the cinematics, and it's done in a fairly natural fashion. You're still definitely hopping all over the world. So there's like a snow mission, and there's a stealth mission, that kind of thing, in through a jungle. But overall,
it's single protagonist, isn't it? There's no...
Yeah, that's a new thing, definitely. It's you're just playing as Mitchell. I think Call of Duty Ghosts did that last year. No, they did change once or twice. Oh well.
But it was far fewer than in previous Call. That's always kind of been a Call of Duty thing in the past, hasn't it? That they've dipped in and out of different protagonists.
Yeah, no, it's definitely very focused around Mitchell and that like little group of characters, and you don't really see any other perspective on a battle. And in general, there's not so many. It doesn't feel like it's going through the Call of Duty cliches too often. Yes, there is a stealth mission. Yes, there's like the snow mission and stuff like that. But there's no like big flashback sequence or anything like that. It feels more natural, more fluid than Ghost did, definitely. Because Ghost, the first half of the story, I was just like, all right, so there's the flashback. Okay, that's off the list. Then there's.
Is there a vehicle mission?
Yeah, there is a vehicle mission.
Okay, good.
There's definitely vehicles. There's Overwatch and that kind of thing. But it feels more natural, more integrated, and it's handled a lot better.
I tend to spend the first half of any Call of Duty game thinking that I don't quite understand what's going on.
Yeah, I think it kind of gets that out of the way quite quickly, because it is that first mission for Mitchell in the military, and you are basically just following.
I think also the single protagonist will help that, because it's okay jumping around the world doing different things, and that's all explained in the mission briefs and stuff, but I think jumping in and out of different people, and quite often in the past they've played with timelines as well. It can be quite confusing, but I think there's like one protagonist, and you're telling his story through his eyes. I think that's going to be quite a nice change for keeping the story sort of on point.
I think it's probably one of the best stories that Call of Duty has had in the last few years, definitely.
And it's kind of nice that it still does have those Call of Duty like tropes that we know and love. It wouldn't feel like a Call of Duty game without the vehicle section and the Overwatch bits and
yeah, I mean they just work though, don't they? And they're a nice way of breaking up the pace. I mean, if it was all just like hiding behind a vehicle, popping out and shooting a few people, moving on to the next vehicle to hide behind, that would get so dull. So you have to have these kinds of bits of variety. And it's all then just in how they're blended together and how it's all mixed up.
So what do you think of it? How good is it? How bad is it?
I think it's really good. I mean, I think it's one of the best Call of Duty games in the last few years, definitely. It's not perfect. I think the ending, I could see what they were trying to do, what they were going for, but I felt that was kind of a bit of a weak moment in the story. But overall, it's definitely up there, and it's going to get. I hope it's going to get a lot of praise from people, and people are going to enjoy playing it.
Excellent. I think that's a nice place to call it quits on this video. But before we go, I'd like to encourage everyone to check out the other video, which is all about the multiplayer side of Advanced Warfare, and also to nip on over to TheSixthAxis.com and read the full review. Thanks, Steph. Say goodbye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Enemy is securing the flag. Momentum up.